Hi everyone, and welcome to DIY Mummy's Minute, making budget-friendly crafts. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Now plug in your glue guns and let's get started. Welcome everybody. So today we are going to be creating a big chunky yarn blanket. And the yarn that I will be using today is from, you guessed it, Dollarama. I found these at my local Dollarama, $4 a bundle. And I only found 3 colors. They came in this purple pink color, the black, and then I also seen a cream color there as well. However, I didn't pick that one up. I do have this gray color. It's called Earl Grey. This was purchased at Michael's because they did have a yarn sale on, and I purchased it for $8. So I did get a few bundles of the gray as well. Now the Dollarama bundles of yarn are not as big as the ones you purchase at Michael's. They're a tad bit smaller. So keep this in mind when you're purchasing your bundles of yarn. You may need a couple more bundles more to complete your blanket depending on the size. So to get started, when I first started, I was a little bit nervous about doing this video just because I do not knit. So I want to make that clear. This is my first time making the big chunky blanket, but I wanted to give it a try, not only because I seen the yarn at Dollarama and it was such a budget-friendly way to create this blanket. I did look into purchasing a chunky blanket online, and for the one that I'm going to create, it was well over $100. So the first thing you want to do is just find the end of your yarn, and you're going to wrap it around your fingers, and you want the loop to be the width of your fingers, and you're just going to create a knot at the end of that loop. So I'm just going to show this again. So I wrap it around my fingers, and then I tuck it under and then pull the loop out, and that creates my knot or my first loop of the blanket. So the next step is you're just going to create a row of loops. So you're going to take the piece that's attached to the bundle and you're going to push it through the loop and pull and create another loop. Then you're going to do this again. Push the piece through the loop, create another one. Push it through, create another one. And you're kind of making a little braid, and this is going to be the end of the blanket. So you're going to do this. I made mine the size of a queen size bed. So I believe I did 30 loops across. If you just want to throw, I'd probably do just 20 loops. And just a tip, you're going to want to make your loops all the same size as best as you can. And you don't want them too tight, but you don't want them too loose either. So it can be a little tricky. However, when you keep doing row for row, you really get used to it and you get the hang of it quite quickly. So again, all I'm doing is just pulling the yarn through the loop and creating a new loop. So once you get the total amount of loops you want on the bottom, you're going to do one more extra loop. And this is going to be the start of the second row. So you're going to place that upwards. And then you're going to create your next set of loops by pulling up through the little humps. So each little hump there that you see, or each little knot that you made on the start of your blanket, you're going to pull up through and make another loop. Once you get your second row, it becomes quite easy and repetitive. Just make sure you're counting and you have the same amount of loops for each row. I think with the next blanket that I make, I will make the loops a little bit smaller. And the smaller the loops, the tighter the blanket will be. And you won't get those gaps in between each knot or each loop. So again, the smaller the loops, the tighter the blanket will be, and you won't get those gaps. So I did make it quite loose, and it really helped the video, so you guys were able to see where I was putting the yarn next. But if you're going to go ahead and make those loops a little bit smaller, and your blanket won't have as many gaps. So when you go to start a new row, that last loop, you're just going to pull the yarn up through the bottom to the top and create a new loop, and this is going to be your next row. And again, you're going to do the same thing. So you're going to take your yarn, push it up through the old loop, or the previous row and pull up and make your new one. So again, this is my first time making this chunky yarn blanket. My loops aren't all the same sizes. As you can see, I do have some inconsistencies there. But for the most part, I think if with some practice and the more I did each row, the better I got at making this blanket. So once you come to the end of your bundle, all you're going to do is just knot the next bundle onto your last bundle. So just create 2 knots, just like tying your shoe, and then with a pair of scissors you can just trim the tails and then continue with your loops. And again, if you want to change the color of the yarn, you simply again just knot the 2 yarns together, pull tight, and trim off the tails. And really, once you get your loops going again, you can't even see the transition or the knot at all. It just seamlessly goes into the chunky blanket. So when I did my transition from black to gray, I made sure I had 10 rows of the black, and then I did 10 rows of the gray, and then I went with moss green and did 10 rows of the green, and then I went back to the gray and then finished with the black at the end. The fun in doing this blanket is that you can make it whatever color you want. You could just do a single color, you could do rainbow. My daughter, she's 10 years old, she seen me creating this blanket. She wanted to try it. She did her own all by herself. It was so easy. She did a gray and a pink and it turned out fabulous as well. I'll post a picture at the end of this video. You can see me rolling the blanket up and kind of pushing it aside so I can get all my loops there. If you have a big space, my daughter, she did hers on the bed. That probably worked the best. The table that I'm using is quite small, so I kept having to roll it and move it from side to side. And as the blanket got bigger and bigger, it got harder and harder to do this. So I did have to switch over to the bed, or the floor works too. Just make sure you have a large surface area to work with. So here I'm just showing the transition from the Earl Grey to the moss green. Again, just tying the knot twice and continuing on with my loops. And as you continue on, that transition, again, you can't even notice it. So here's a little clip of my 10-year-old daughter creating her blanket. Again, she did this pretty pink and gray color. And again, super easy to do, guys. She figured it out in matter of minutes and created her own blanket all by herself. So the last step to finish off your blanket is you're going to take the last 2 loops, you're going to put them together, and then you're going to take your yarn and you're going to pull it through the 2 loops, creating another loop. Then you're going to take your new loop and the next loop in the row and do the same thing. Pull it through, create a new loop, and you're going to repeat that process till you finish off your blanket and get to the very end. And you can see as you go, you're creating that braid that you first had at the very beginning of your blanket. So once you do this all the way down the row and you come to the very end or the last 2 loops, you're going to cut your yarn and then pull it through the 2 loops and create a simple knot. And then you can take that tail, you can either cut it or you can just weed it on down through the blanket. So I ended up putting a couple knots at the end to make it quite secure, and then I just took the tail and I weeded it down through the blanket. And here's how my blanket turned out, guys. It looks fabulous. I love it. It's so comfy, and I can't believe I created this blanket in a little over an hour. These blankets would make a great gift for anybody. I know Valentine's Day is just around the corner and you have so much time to create one of these for someone special. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and it inspires you to create something beautiful. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment for more DIY fun.